G'day Cobbers, and welcome to the channel. Right, before we get into the thick of it, you know the drill. This isn't financial advice, I'm not your advisor. This is purely for your own info and education, so you can make up your own mind. Okay, legal's done, let's get stuck into it, because today we're talking about something your bank is up to, something that affects every single Aussie with a bank account.
So let me ask you a question, straight up. What if I told you your bank has a secret, a big one, and it's a secret about you that they are legally required to keep from you, but can tell the government anytime they want? Sounds a bit dodgy, right? Well, it's real. It's a system that's been humming away in the background of our financial lives for years, and today we're going to drag the whole thing out into the sun.
Now, to really get our heads around what's happening right here in Australia, we need to go back to the source. We've got to look at where this whole idea came from. And no surprise, like a lot of things in global finance, the story starts in the good old US of A. They basically wrote the playbook for this stuff, a blueprint for financial surveillance, and, well, we've been following it pretty closely ever since.
And it all began with this thing here, the Bank Secrecy Act, way back in 1970. Now, on paper, it sounds pretty reasonable, yeah? The goal was to help the government catch crooks and stop financial crime. Who's going to argue with that? But what it really did was change the entire game. It basically turned every single bank from a place that looked after your money into an unofficial agent for the cops. They were deputized, given a badge, and told to watch you.
And that's the thing. People who've looked at this closely, they don't call it a crime-fighting tool. They call it exactly what it is, a massive, bloody financial surveillance system. This was the turning point. This was the moment that financial privacy in America pretty much died. It gave the government a backdoor, a way to look at all your bank records whenever they felt like it, without needing to get a warrant. A complete game changer.
And if you thought that was bad, this was the knockout blow. The US Supreme Court themselves stepped in and made it official. They ruled that you, yes you, have no, quote, reasonable expectation of privacy when it comes to your own bank records. Just let that sink in for a second. Everything you do with your money, where you shop, who you pay, where your salary comes from, the highest court in the land said, nope, that's not really your private info anymore. The government can have a look. All right, so that's the American story. And you might be sitting there thinking, well, that's them, not us. Wrong. Don't for a second think this is just some Yankee problem, because we've copied the homework. We have built our very own version of this surveillance machine right here, down under. So let's have a proper look at how it's working in our own backyard.
So our version has a fancy name, the Anti-Money Laundering and Counter-Terrorism Financing Act. Bit of a mouthful, so everyone just calls it the AML/CTF Act. And the mob running the show is a government agency called AUSTRAC. Think of them as our financial intelligence agency. They're the ones sitting in Canberra, collecting all this data that our banks are now legally forced to give them.
So how does this spying actually work? Well, this table breaks it down pretty well. There are basically three big ways they watch you. First up, you've got the TTR, or Threshold Transaction Report. Pretty simple. Any cash transaction of 10,000 Aussie dollars or more, bang. Your bank automatically reports it to AUSTRAC, no questions asked. Next, the IFTI. That's for international transfers. Sending money to your rellies overseas, getting paid from a client in another country, doesn't matter. Every single one of those transfers, in or out, gets reported. But this last one, this is the one you really need to pay attention to. The SMR, or Suspicious Matter Report. This is where it gets real murky. If your bank teller or some algorithm thinks anything you do is a bit suspicious, and that can mean anything, they file a report on you. And here's the secret we talked about at the start. They are legally banned from telling you they've done it. You get dobbed into the government and you're never ever allowed to know.
Look, this isn't just some high and mighty talk about privacy. This isn't theoretical. This system has real, tangible consequences that affect ordinary Aussies every day. It basically creates a climate of fear inside the banks, forcing them to be overly cautious. And guess who pays the price for that? You do. This is where we get into the scary world of being de-risked and debanked.
And here's the absolute guts of the problem. It's a massive, one-sided power imbalance. Your bank is legally required to spy on you. But, and this is the crucial part, if they decide to report you as a suspect, they get absolute immunity. You can't sue them. You can't do anything about it. So what do you think that does? It makes them report everything. Anything even slightly out of the ordinary, they'll file a report just to cover their own backsides. For the bank, there's zero risk. For you, all the risk is on your shoulders.
And that leads us straight to this term, derisking. You see, for the banks, all this spying and reporting costs a fortune, and the fines if they get it wrong are massive. So they start looking at their customers and thinking, you know what, some of these people are just too much trouble. They're too much of a risk. And so they just cut them off. They'll freeze your accounts or just shut them down completely. You're kicked out of the banking system, and most of the time, they won't even tell you why.
And just how much are we talking about here? How expensive is this? Well, if we look back at the US data, it's pretty eye-watering. For a small bank, just complying with this one law makes up over a fifth of their entire cost of dealing with regulations. That's 22.3%. That's a staggering amount of money being spent not on better service or new products, but on spying for the government. And you can bet your bottom dollar that cost gets passed right on to us, the customers, through higher fees and rubbish service.
And this chart here, it tells a really important story. It shows who's really getting smashed by these costs. See that tall bar? That's the small banks. This burden, it's not shared equally. It absolutely crushes the little guys, the small community banks. Meanwhile, the big four, they can afford armies of lawyers and compliance officers. They can just absorb it. So what happens? It kills off competition and just makes the big banks even more powerful.
Okay, so if you're thinking this all sounds pretty full-on already, well, you better buckle up. Because this surveillance net we have in Australia, it's about to get a whole lot bigger. They call it Trunch too. And believe me, it's coming for just about everyone.
Get your calendar out and circle this date, July 1st, 2026. That is the day that this whole regime is scheduled to expand in a massive way. It is, and I'm not exaggerating, a seriously critical moment for financial freedom in this country. So who's about to get dragged into this net? Just take a look at this list. Lawyers and conveyancers, the people you trust with your biggest life decisions. Accountants, the person who knows your financial situation better than anyone. Real estate professionals, even dealers in precious metals and stones. All of these people, who for centuries have had a sacred duty of confidentiality to their clients, will soon be forced by law to spy on you, to monitor your activities, and file those same secret SMRs with Austrac. Think about it. Your accountant could become a government informant against you.
Right, so let's just recap. We're giving up our financial privacy. We're making it harder for small banks to compete. We're about to turn accountants and lawyers into spies. The multi-billion-dollar question has to be, is it even working? After all this, are we actually stopping any of the bad guys? Let's check the scoreboard.
Have a look at this chart. It's based on the US numbers, and it's just staggering. You see that massive blue chunk? That represents the more than 4.7 million reports filed every single year. Now see that tiny little sliver? That little 0.1% bit? That's how many of those reports lead to actual investigations. It's what they call information overload. They're collecting so much data on innocent, everyday people that it creates this massive haystack of information. And trying to find the one criminal needle in that giant haystack? It's next to impossible.
And this really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? This quote nails it. For the actual criminals, this system is just a minor inconvenience. They're professionals, they know how to get around it. But for the rest of us, for law-abiding Aussies, it's a major burden. We're the ones being treated like suspects from the get-go.
And get this, for the final, bitter irony. The United States, the country that invented this whole global surveillance model, is now considered one of the best places in the world to launder money. Yep, you heard that right. Some studies now rank it as a top spot for corrupt cash, even ahead of places like Switzerland. The system is such a failure, it doesn't even work in its own home country. It's a joke.
So when you take all of this in, it forces you to take a step back and ask a much bigger, more fundamental question. In a world where every single transaction is potentially being monitored, where every single one of us is treated as a potential suspect by default, what does financial freedom even mean anymore?
And I'm going to leave you with this final thought to chew on. Our legal system is supposed to be based on innocent until proven guilty. But this financial system? It's the complete opposite. It's guilty until proven innocent. It assumes everyone needs to be watched. So the final question is this. If everyone is a suspect, is anyone truly free?
Righto, that's us for today, Cobbers. Hope you got something out of this deep dive. If you reckon this was valuable and you want more hard-hitting truths about what's really going on with our money, do me a huge favor. Give this video a thumbs up and more importantly, hit that subscribe button for the Cobber channel. Appreciate you watching. Cheers!